Walking with Monsters. Welcome, guys, once again to the channel Ranking with Dinosaurs, where we ranked, you guessed it, dinosaurs. And once again today, we are breaking the rules, and we're not going to be talking about dinosaurs today, but very close, because we're going to go a little bit further back in time, and we're going to be talking about the show that ended the very critically acclaimed trilogy of life. And that is Walking with Monsters, perhaps the most distinct one, and not only because tackles a very different time period that we're most not very it is not very known or as much known as the other two, but the actual structure of the show is also a bit different. Walking with Dinosaurs and Walking with Beasts are basically have the same structure, but this one is a bit different. It does have a fewer amount of episodes. But what I came up with is that we are going to deconstruct these episodes, and we're going to rank each segment. Each segment, again, does portray a different time period, so we're going to be ranking those specific segments. And I know that these specific ones do not have any names, but I am going to be coming up with names for each one of these segments over here, and I'm gonna do a little game here, and you're gonna tell me what would be the title for each different part. Without further ado, gonna be starting with an alien ocean. So we're gonna be starting with the alien ocean. That's the name I put. Let me know in the comments again. I'm gonna be putting the names of each segment, so you're gonna let me know which ones you would what would you name them, basically. So this covers the Cambrian period, and I have to say, rewatching this episode, I wasn't very amused. Again, I'm watching this through rose-tinted lenses because I am biased, and I love the show, but seeing it from a strictly segment or narratively based show, because this show is narratively driven, I have to say this one is the weakest one. It's very bland. I do love obviously the creatures are awesomely animated. I love the Anomalocaris, insane predator. We see it fight other Anomalocaris. We see it hunt trilobites too, which do show up in the episode. And we do see Hycoxis. I think I pronounced that correctly. I don't know. But what is said in the show is that it is the precursor for all vertebrates. And yes, this guy, the size of a fingernail, is our ancestor, apparently. So, Hycoxis, very cool, first vertebrates. And yes. So this is basically, again, the dawn of this of life. And I do, again, like the actual animals that do show up, but narratively speaking, again, compared to the not even Walking with Dinosaurs or Beasts, but in the same show, there's the other segments do have a strong narrative. So I'm actually pretty surprised this one is pretty mid, like whatever. So I have to say, like, in retrospect, I'm gonna put it in C tier, surprisingly. First, Colonizers. So we're going to move on in the second segment of the first episode, and this one takes place in the Silurian. And already this segment right here, much better than the first one. Right at the gate, like portraying with having the Brontoscorpio, which is an insane looking scorpion, like freaking scary and huge. And yes, they also can be on. They're not only aquatic animals, but they can also go on land. Hence the name of the episode. Arthropods were the first ones on land, not vertebrates. And these Brontoscorpios do show up using their stingers to hit the camera, which is pretty cool. I love when the show does this. Those little touches really do set this one apart from other documentaries. We do see it hunt a Cephalaspis, which is a jawless fish, and I have to say, it did as a little kid, I did feel bad about Cephalaspis in this episode. it broke my heart. We're gonna be talking about that scene a little later, but we do see it, going strong about its life. It does escape though, because this Bronto-Scorpio gets absolutely destroyed by the big boy of the Silurian, Pterygotus, a Eurypterid, which is widely known to be probably the top predator on this during this time period, and it was pretty scary. I have to say, this was one of those moments in the show where you're like, oh shit, the thing is getting crazy and these are basically aliens on Earth. If you think today's oceans are pretty alien, because they are, well, imagine back then what it was like. So we do see our little one of the cool things is they show the cephalaspis actually doing a pretty cool behavior, which is going into a much shallower waters to reproduce and lay their eggs. But for this, they have to cross a little bridge. Oh, I'm so sorry. There is some music going on outside. I apologize for that. But yes, so we do see it that they have to cross a little land bridge, and the Bronto-Scorpios, which are very very much capable of being on land, take advantage of this and start eating and hunting the poor cephalaspis. This scene made me so sad as a child. Child me was extremely weeping at this scene. So I really like this episode. This Silurian episode. It's nothing too crazy though, so I think cautiously gonna drop it in B tier, between water and land. So we're gonna be moving on with the third segment, the Devonian, which is a main character, our little amphibian-like tetrapod little friend, Inerpedon. Now, I forgot to mention in the previous two segments is that we do have a special transition, since we don't hard cut to a different time period. We do have a kind of transitional form weird animation, which as a kid you're like, oh shit, this is so cool, this animal's like evolving right in front of my eyes. But no, this is actually one of the few very weird like decisions, inaccurate decisions that they made on the show, where you see some completely different animal like evolve into a widely different thing. I don't know, seeing as a grown-up, knowing a little bit more about these types of things, you're like, what the heck is that? Why did they do that? But again, it is, I guess a novel. You never see it done because, it's not accurate. But I thought it was pretty funny. And here, well, the previous cephalaspis, a fish, jawless fish, actually evolves into a amphibian-like tetrapod called Inerpedon. So, I don't know, I thought that was pretty funny. And, right at the gate, it shows us that Inerpedon is still tied to the water, because it does need the water to maintain its, keep its skin hydrated. But it does have the ability to go onto land, and that's pretty cool, because still in the water, now, no, it's not arthropods that we're scared of, it's other vertebrates. And here we can see, Stiphocanthus, which is, a pretty tiny shark, but, still a shark. But the actual real scary thing is the Hyneria. One of the scariest looking fish I've ever seen in my life. This is a 2-ton animal as well. A 2-ton fish just beelining towards you. That is absolutely scary. The Inerpedon does get away the first time. The Hyneria actually catches a Stiphocanthus. But our main character, Inerpedon, actually does have quite a steep road ahead of him, since he has to impress a female by, having a flexing competition with another Inerpedon. Yes, you heard me correctly, a flexing competition, and while doing some weird mating calls. I don't know, kind of strange, but we'll let it go for our little friend here. It does end up mating after failing to get a lady at night, but in the morning, he did have some some actual luck with a Inerpedon lady. And sadly, they are doing it still in the water because, the eggs still need the water to, actually survive. And the huge ass in the area takes advantage of this and actually just claps our little friend by going onto land and almost beaching itself like an orca. That was pretty cool from the area. I have to give it that. So this third episode, I think I might put it on. Oh God, I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. Actually, yeah, I love this episode. Creepy forest crawlers. Now this one takes place in the Carboniferous, and I have to say I'm pretty proud of that name. I mean, you gotta give me credit. Come on, creepy forest crawlers. Again, Carboniferous is known for its cold forests. That's what the actual name means. And high oxygen levels, as we all know. And this is where a lot of people a lot of us learn about giant arthropods that were loose around, that were around the Carboniferous. One of the scariest realizations as a kid is that a spider, which we'll talk about it, could be the size of a cat. That's what the actual show says. That just scared me. I'm like, bro, what? What do you mean a cat? Spiders don't get that big. But yes, so Mesothelius is the spider that gets name dropped in the show, and it is very funny because, as we all know, it turned out to Mesothelius, the actual fossil turned out not to be an actual spider, but a Eurypterid. Yes, those giant scorpions, which are not scorpions, but giant scorpions was actually one of those. So no big spider. There was probably spiders back then because there are spiders from the Carboniferous, but nothing that that huge. But the funny thing is that they knew when they made the show that it was not true to be a spider, but they still went with it. It was probably too far into actual production to remove it. So, but still, it is I think it's what carries again this particular segment, because this guy is just after the poor little Petrolagosaurus, which is an early reptile that does not need water. Well, is not tied to the water. It still needs water to live, but it's not tied to the water, and it's purely land based. This guy runs around, and it is the primary food of this giant spider and Meganeura, which is another giant dragonfly. Yes, but I have to say the stand-on of this segment particularly is the Arthropillar. Come on, he's the GOAT. This particular episode is known for introducing one of the coolest animals ever, Arthropillar, a herbivorous, yes, herbivorous, huge ass millipede, the actual best. And it is a shame that it does get actually clapped by another amphibian, huge amphibian. I can't remember, Proterogorinus, something like that, if I'm correct. Yeah, Proterogorinus. It does get clapped by it, but in a really weird fight choreography thing. But I don't know. We'll let it pass. This episode is awesome. I do like at the end how the Mesothelius is about to you think it's about to eat our little friend Petrolagosaurus, but a huge storm comes in and he gets fried. I don't think it's a weird choice to put it right up there in S tier. Sails of the desert. So we're going to be moving on to the early Permian. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this thing, because a new group of dominant animals have colonized the land. And those are, specifically in this segment, is two different species of pelycosaur. First one being the Edaphosaurus, which is, the giant sailed herbivorous and triangular head, huge sail, chill, sometimes gets murdered by other pelycosaur. But, he's like the gentle giant of the early Permian. And, this particular guy, it doesn't show up it does show up in the episode a lot, but he's not the main character. because the main character syndrome goes to Dimetrodon, the other pelycosaur. Again, big sale. This one is particularly carnivorous in nature, and our protagonist is a mother. She's very caring. She builds a nest, and she does practice cannibalism by the end of this episode. Pretty insane range of emotions. The Dimetrodon, actually, I do love. Again, the narrative-based episodes. We see this mother, from the moment she is pregnant, trying to hunt to get enough food for her to have enough energy so she can safeguard her nest where she puts her eggs. She's constantly checking on them, regulating the temperature. And by one moment there's a little amphibian guy, a Siluria, trying to get her eggs, but she is protecting her nest at all costs. You see how the seasons pass, how the season changes, and they get to a point where the babies hatch. The mother, as well, gets into an insane fight with another Dimetrodon, which wants her nest for herself. But pretty awesome. I really like how cinematic this particular segment feels. And at the end of the episode, yes, the babies hatch, but the mother is weak. And she says, what's a little bite gonna be? It's not that bad. And, the babies do get chased by a bunch of adults. But because they're tiny, they get into the trees and they are safe now. So, I really like this episode. This is one of those staple episodes of the show. Do I want to put it in S tier? I don't know. Let's go to the tier list. Do I want to put it in S tier? That is the question. And I think I am going to put it in S tier. Yes. Signs of the End. So we're going into the late Permian now, where a supercontinent called Pangaea has settled on Earth. This is mostly vastly inhospitable desert. And, this particular episode shows us the life on a shrinking waterhole and its surrounding shenanigans that happen. So we got a lot of different protagonists in the show, a lot of characters showing up. So we got Scutosaurus, which the herbivorous armored prey item in a herd, Parasaur. So this guy, his first job on the show is actually get murdered by a super predator, which is, we'll talk about it. But then later on, a huge ass herd shows up and it just drinks the whole water on the watering hole. No regards for the safety of others. But yes, so it does get predated by a Gorgonopsid. I think it's just called Gorgonopsid in the actual show. But this guy is awesome. Again, I believe the Gorgonopsid in Primeval, if you've seen that show, is actually heavily based on this particular design, which is freaking sick. It's vicious, but it also shows the vulnerable side because, it's very, in this desert, it's up there on like any other animal. They are vulnerable to the elements or, the world. They're not above each other when it comes to, survival or, for example, getting water, because every animal needs water, and there is particular one that is very good at it, and that is Dicynodon, which is the other, I would say it's the underdog of the episode. Adorable. They have little tusks, and, they live underground in burrows, and, they live in, very large groups where they do not need to be, on the surface with all those big guys. On this little watering hole, there's also another character. Calling it characters. This one does feel like, I don't know, like a sitcom. And then you got the Labyrinthodont, which is a amphibian, like a crocodile-like amphibian. And this guy in the episode, at first, he's like, oh god, this very mysterious thing. It's in the water. We don't want to get too close because we're gonna get snagged. But when the watering hole just gets completely dry, this guy goes into hibernation mode, and it does get excavated by a Gorgonopsid, which, you know, ends up eating it. But yes, again, late Permian is, you know, very well known for being the last period of the Paleozoic. It's a huge extinction event that comes after this, and one of the very few animals that did manage to survive this are the Dicynodonts. This episode, I really love it. I don't love it as much as the other two, but it's definitely up there. I think I like it more. Yeah, I'm definitely like it more than the Devonian one, which I'm gonna put in A tier. New beginnings. So, gonna be the last segment. I was about to say last episode, but well, this is the last episode, but this is the last segment of the last episode where we touch the early Triassic. I have to say, I really love this idea, because they could have just, you know, went with the, you know, just ended with the Permian, just ended with the extinction, which does happen, but they don't end the show. They show us a hopeful future for all these animals. And it starts with Lystrosaurus, which is, you know, the Dicynodont that Dicynodonts survived. And, you know, they are right now 90% of all land animals on Earth by this time. We see them on a huge migration where they get attacked by different predators, starting with Therosophalians, which are, you know, these therapsids, which are carnivorous, and stating the show that are venomous, which is, you know, a little strange. But there is actually some actual evidence backing this, not concrete evidence, but, you know, there are some, you know, very good theories around. The other carnivorous animal that does go after our friends Lystrosaurus is Proterosuchus, which is not a genus anymore. It is now known as, how do you say it, Chesmatosaurus or Chesmatosaurus? I'm going to say Chesmatosaurus because that's the way I said it as a child. There's a croc-like Proterosuchid. I have to say, the scene where they are, the river scene where they are hunting the Lystrosaurus, I love the comparative or the parallels between today's African savanna, where crocodiles are, eating or hunting zebras while they are crossing the rivers, and I love the parallel. Pretty cool. I love it when we reference today's behaviors, prehistoric animals. So that's a huge plus in my book. But the little guy is the one that is actually the one that will inherit this earth during the Mesozoic, and that is Euparkeria, an early forerunner of dinosaurs. And one of the funniest things that happens in the show is right at the end, where this Euparkeria just suddenly starts evolving in a matter of seconds into a full-blown Allosaurus. I mean, that is one of those unintentionally funny things that is absolutely hilarious, because you might be thinking, you're like, well, they're showing it, you know, evolving through time until the Jurassic. No, this guy just pokey evolves into a full-blown Allosaurus. While all of this, while Chesmatosaurus is just looking at it and absolutely bewildered. He's like, what the fuck is happening right now? His world is getting rocked. But yes, this early Triassic, I love it. I'm going to put it in A tier as well. No, you know what? I'm going to put it in B tier. I don't think there's much. The stand-up scene is the river scene, but everything else is a little bit mid. So I'm going to put it in B tier. That is Walking with Monsters. Thank you guys so much for watching. I finished, finally, the trilogy of life. I love the Walking With series. I did name, if you didn't caught on, I did name my channel after Walking With Dinosaurs. I love the show. Still holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm pretty sure that it does for you too, most of you. So, without further ado, thank you guys. Please comment. Helps a lot. I want to see your segment names. I want to laugh with you guys. Let me know if you like mine, because I was thinking about, just naming it, Silurian, Devonian, but I've done this before, and I wanted to, change it a little bit in this particular tier list. So, please, how can you help the channel? Like the video. helps a lot. Subscribe helps even more. And I will see you guys in the next episode.